So this meeting is being recorded in compliance with our public record laws. So my name again is John Romano from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. Stepping into this neighborhood tonight to be able to cover for my colleague. What we're going to do here tonight is we're going to hear from a cannabis establishment. I have a spiel that I'm going to walk through with you all, but essentially what I'd like to mention is that at the beginning of this, participants are muted to begin with throughout the whole presentation. At the end, you'll be unmuted, be able to ask any questions, comments, and concerns. I'm going to go through the list as they appear here on my attendee list. Like I said, I'm from the Mayor's Office, Neighborhood Services. We're going to facilitate this statutorily required cannabis outreach meeting. This is an application by the team here for a retail cannabis dispensary to be operated at 85 Devonshire Street. Before we start, I would like to go over my expectations for tonight's meeting. And having participated in multiple meetings of this kind, I know that this can be a sensitive topic. So I want to make it clear that no decisions are being made tonight, and at no time will it be acceptable to be disrespectful to anyone during the meeting. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. There is no right or wrong opinion, and we are here tonight to try to collect as many comments and questions for this proposal. I am not here to facilitate debates amongst neighbors or to relitigate state legislature. I ask that all questions be directed towards the applicant and myself only, and that the applicant will answer all questions related to their proposal to the best of their ability, and I will answer questions specific to the city's process. Tonight, if either of us are unable to answer any of your questions, we will follow up with you after the meeting to get you that information. This is an open comment period, meaning that if you do not get called on tonight, or if you think of questions that have not been answered, all you need to do is reach out to us and we will work to get you that information. My contact information has been included on the flyer that you received to attend tonight. It's also John, John, period, Romano, Romano, at boston.gov. I will ask the team at some point, I'm sure they have it in their slides here tonight, to be able to make sure their contact information is also shared. Now with that, I'm going to actually turn it over to their team to be able to go through this presentation for tonight.
So John, I want to share my screen. Do I have privileges now?
Yep, you should have the privileges now if you click the share button. And you have to click on whichever bubble pops up. Yes.
Can you guys see that?
It's starting to come up for me now, but I can see it perfectly fine now.
So my name is Kobe Evans. I'm one of the co-owners of Pure Oasis. We are Boston's first recreational dispensary. We opened in March of 2020, right before, I guess, when Boston was getting hit with the pandemic. We've been open since that day. We were closed for 2 months in 2020. And in that time, we went through kind of a reimagining of our store, and we were able to open 2 months later. And we've been in business since then. We endeavored to open our second location at 85 Devonshire Street. And again, we want to just thank you for being present today for our presentation at our community outreach meeting. One of the things that we like to do at our community outreach meeting that's more important to us than anything, more important than this actual presentation, is really hearing from community members, from stakeholders. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this presentation. I'm not going to spend as much in-depth time on this presentation, as I like to interact more with community members to get input and feedback from them regarding any questions, comments, or concerns. So at this time, I'd like to start this presentation. As I said, we'll go through it, but I'll reserve most of my time at the end so we can have open conversation about any questions, comments, or concerns. One of the things that we're looking at is opening up in what's called a major market. A major market is, certain areas of Boston where it's not as easy for small locally owned companies to get access to. One of the bigger issues as it relates to smaller companies like Pure Oasis is finding a large building such as 85 Devonshire Street, where the landlord has a financing agreement in place and their underlying bank will allow for a cannabis operator. Vast majorities of owners of these buildings can't even begin to talk to a company like Pure Oasis regarding operating in their space because their mortgage, their finance companies won't allow for it. So we were pretty excited when we found this location and the landlord was willing to have the conversation, and ultimately their bank acquiesced and allowed us to start the process of entering in a lease. And again, this property is 85 Devonshire Street. Kevin is my business partner. We're the owners of Pure Oasis. Again, we opened last year. We were Boston's first cannabis operator. We were also the first equity applicant in the state. The state has a program called, basically it's in social equity program. And we were the first economic empowerment applicants in the state of Massachusetts to open a cannabis dispensary. We also had the privilege of being the first minority-owned cannabis company on the East Coast. So again, our company was opened in March of last year. Our first location is in Dorchester. Again, one of our main concerns when we opened our company, opened Dorchester, was being a good community partner, and we worked in tandem with the city to open that location. And as we experienced the success of running that location and having no issues and scaling that location to what it is now, we looked at the opportunity of expanding on that footprint and opening several more locations, as well as a grow facility. So that's where we're at now, is opening our second location at Devonshire Street. This is an overview of what we're looking at in Downtown Crossing. Downtown Crossing being one of the premier locations to have a cannabis dispensary in the city. As you can see, and as most people know, it's a thickly high density, high population area. And this particular location is off of Washington Street, and it's on the corner of Water Street and Devonshire Street, right in the heart of Downtown Crossing. Another view of the location as it currently stands. This is a rendering of what the our architects came up with, this rendering of what the space would ultimately look like. This is a night view. What we're looking at is using paneling inside to create some natural barriers. One of our concerns at Grove Hall that we originally were concerned about, but we don't necessarily see as much as crowding on the sidewalks with lines. These barriers will create these pathways where people can wait inside off the sidewalk, eliminating any sort of outside traffic, but they also obscure the view on the inside, which is a requirement with the state. This is another rendering of what it looks like to come inside of Pure Oasis. We're going to have basically a greeter, if you will, that will check IDs. IDs need to be checked before you can get inside of the building, and this is a rendering of what it will look like inside as people enter and exit. But before they can enter, they have to have their IDs checked. Again, these are just more images of the mock-up of what the inside will look at. We're working with a local architect called JTA, and these are some of the conceptual drawings that we've worked out. Really, we wanted to just celebrate the existing architecture in the building. So some of the elements that you see here, such as the pillars and some of the architectural detail and lighting around the ceiling, already exist. So we're just adding to that with a point of sale system and a service counter. Again, if you need, we can make this presentation available and you can have access to it just to see some of the finer details. This is probably more detail than the average person needs, but this is just a schematic layout of the inside of the space. So in terms of operations, one of the things that, we celebrate is the fact that we've been open for more than a year. And in that year, going from, scaling a business from zero to, being one of the busier dispensaries in the state, is that a year and a half in the industry, it feels like 5 years of any other business, just based on the amount of issues that we have to address before they become problems. And so we have a great relationship with the state and this Cannabis Control Commission. And we really strive to have a first-class business. And I think that we are slowly getting there. And I think that, as we get into our next store and our next, our next vertical, our next operation, we will have achieved that world-class look and feel that we're aiming for. We have strategic partners in the industry that are our suppliers. And we've really set a mark in the city, or I'm sorry, we really set a mark in the state. And um, our name is synonymous with an operation that is efficient, effective. Um, we treat our customers well, we treat our employees well, and we treat our business partners well, and we enjoy that. And we're looking to expand on that with our next location. Security is a big concern for us as mandated by the state, the Cannabis Control Commission. We're happy to say that, we've had minimal issues in Grove Hall. And also, in working with some of our vendors around security, we've learned a lot and we know how to address possible issues before, or address issues before they become problems. We work closely with Boston Police Department. And again, our alarm company, as well as our video surveillance company. We're always improving the system just to make sure that we have redundancies and that we exceed the threshold set by the Cannabis Control Commission. Security is paramount to us because we want to keep our staff safe, our product safe. We want to make sure that none of our product is ending up in the hands of someone who's under 21 or someone who shouldn't have legal access to it. So we're learning the nuances of the industry and constantly improving on them. One of the big concerns we originally had, especially being in Dorchester, was just loitering. I think that people have when they reference something like cannabis, they think of a liquor store where you have people who are buying, small amounts of alcohol and standing around and drinking. And so we were super concerned, we were hyper concerned about loitering when we first opened. One of the things that we quickly figured out is that, customers come into our store, they want to get in, buy what they want to buy, and they want to get out. Loitering has really never been an issue as it relates to cannabis. People have jobs because they need to have income in order to afford to purchase cannabis. And with that, they just don't have the lifestyle where they want to either be seen standing around smoking or possibly be arrested for standing around smoking. So loitering has really never been an issue, thankfully. But I know that that is a concern when we were opening Grove Hall, and I'm sure that's going to be a concern in downtown. And thankfully, we can report that with this particular product, we just don't have that issue. Diversion is a big concern of ours, and diversion is what happens when someone underage asks someone who is over 21 to purchase cannabis for them. And I think we all kind of have seen this firsthand with alcohol. And so it's a big concern of us when it comes to cannabis. Our security staff are present in Dorchester outside of the store. And we are very hypersensitive to any potential people who look like they're underage, possibly being around the property, because we want to make sure that our product is not ending up in the hands of someone under the age. And so we're very vigilant about that. And again, we haven't had any issues like that, but we don't want to rest on that. We really want to be proactive in making sure we have a presence inside the store, outside the store, watching our video cameras just to see if there's anything that doesn't look normal. And we also always put out memos just reinforcing, to be on the lookout of anything that looks suspicious. One of the things that we've been very successful is giving people second chances. Jobs are jobs, but when you hire someone who has a hard time, working at Target because they have maybe been arrested for cannabis or they couldn't pass a drug test, those employees become some of your most valuable employees because they recognize the fact that they're getting a second chance. They're passionate about what they do because they're doing something that they actually love. And so it's always kind of prideful for us when we do hire people who are excited about working for us because they know our reputation, they know the industry, and they want to be part of it. It makes us feel good, and it's this kind of back and forth where our staff are appreciative of the opportunity. And we just had, a little event at the store the other day, and, just hearing staff saying that they love working for us, that is its own reward in what we do. But we like finding people who have stories and, who we can go out on a limb for to see if it works out, because we do believe in giving people second chances. And that kind of is what drives us as an organization. Community is key. I'm a lifelong Bostonian. Where we have our store now in Dorchester, I grew up in that neighborhood. So it meant a lot for me to open in Grove Hall, because and I still see people on a daily basis that know me, they know my family. And so I want to be able to hold up to any expectations of being a good neighbor, of being a good community partner. And so anywhere we go in the city, we want to be able to wear our Pure Oasis shirts, and to be able to walk proudly through Boston to let people know that, yes, we work for Pure Oasis. And also to be able to, represent a brand that stands for supporting community and giving back. And so community is always going to be important for us, because as we look to expand, we want to make sure that our name hasn't been tarnished with something that is unsavory. Social justice. One of the keys that kind of got us started was our relationship with someone like Ayanna Pressley, who really kind of paved the way for the ballot measure to become a law that created the whole cannabis industry in Massachusetts. And, we had the pleasure of her stopping by the store over the summer just to check on us and see how everything was going. But, we believe strongly in social justice. Kevin and I come from, kind of inner city backgrounds, growing up in poverty. And so this means a lot to be able to get into this industry, but also just to give back and to show others what it's like to be able to open a dispensary in, of all neighborhoods, Dorchester, where, this used to be over policed and now it's legal. And, that's important for us to do things like community cleanups and turkey drives and fundraising and things of that nature. One of the things that sets us apart is kind of our experience, and this is a picture from us opening up our shop in March of last year. A lot of people, 95% of all operators who apply to open up in the city have no experience running a dispensary. Kevin and I have, over a year and a half of experience, day in and day out, working in and running a dispensary. So that kind of separates us in terms of other applicants, because we have that experience. We've developed a team. We have all sorts of consultants and partners that help us run the organization. So we know the problems or issues to avoid before they even become, more than an issue. So I think that when it comes to deciding who is who in Boston, someone who has the experience that Kevin and I have, it stands out. Wrapped up. And at this time, I'd like to open it up for questions. I think it's important, more so in these, we've done a handful of these kind of community engagement, community outreach meetings, and it's important to hear from the stakeholders, from the neighbors, from the abutters, to really get a sense of what the real concerns are as we move forward.
Thank you, Kobe. We appreciate you and your team's presentation here tonight. So one thing I want to do before we start taking questions and comments from the participants here, is just to remind everyone again that we're looking for this to be obviously a respectful, discussion, respectful period. If you don't get your chance for your question or comment to be asked tonight, you can always reach out to myself and the team, as well as the Cannabis board, to be able to get your question answered. One thing I do want to do before I start, and Vanessa, I'll unmute you as well if you'd like to just say hello. I do want to recognize Vanessa Wu from Councillor Flynn's office is here as well.
Hi, folks. Thanks, John. Hi, folks. This is Vanessa from Councillor Flynn's office. Happy to be here to listen to all your comments and feedback.
Awesome. Thank you, Vanessa. All right, so I'm going to start with the first participant here. So Aiden LaFlaherty, I apologize if I misspoke with your last name there. You should be unmuted if you had a question, comment, or concern.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right, sweet. So question, I guess like what benefit specifically do you think a dispensary in downtown Boston would bring to the immediate community like surrounding Boston? Do you like
Sure, that's a great question. I think that, I think one of the things that I've seen is, even in my personal experiences, someone, at 10 o'clock at night standing around on the corner, waiting for, someone to drop off a package of illegal cannabis. And to this date, it has never really been the safest exchange ever. And especially when you have things like fentanyl and other chemicals that are being mixed in with illegal drugs. I think we live in a time now where we need access to safe cannabis. And whether we're in downtown or cannabis is legal, people will still consume cannabis. And studies have shown that when you have access to legal cannabis, it reduces things like people overdosing or having bad effects of cannabis laced with other drugs, but it also reduces children who are or people under 21 who have access to cannabis because legal cannabis diminishes the black market cannabis dealers. So again, no matter what, cannabis is going to be out there. You just want to have control over the quality of the product and the exchange and negating, people under the age having access.
That's a really good answer. And then also, could I ask a second question? Is that allowed?
Sure.
So like with your pricing, like how do you think that you would be able to compete with the black market cannabis exchange? Because I know that their rates are probably lower than like the federal cannabis rates in other dispensaries. So like how would you kind of get more people to buy cannabis legally as opposed to buying it illegally?
Yeah, I think that, that's another great question. And I'm not sure that we ever actually will be able to compete on that level because, you know, w- there are differences that go into when we produce cannabis versus when someone produces it in Mexico or in another country or in another state and ships it here. They don't have to abide by restrictions regarding pesticides or the fact that our water has to, meet certain standards. They don't have to abide by that. So I don't think that we're ever going to be able to compete with that. But where we do compete is being able to walk into a retail store to speak with someone who is knowledgeable about the product, to have more than one option, and to create some safety standards around the exchange and the actual product. There are some people who will always go to the illicit market because it's convenient and the price is right. And then there are those who want, a better buying experience or to feel safer about the product that they buy. So I'm not sure that we'll ever be able to compete.
Would you say that your like primary selling point would be that it's safe exchanges, you can talk to people that are knowledgeable about the product, and just kind of like know that you're getting what you're paying for and you're not getting laced with anything?
I think so. Unfortunately, right now there's a lot of people who are buying one drug only to find out it's laced with fentanyl and having really bad reactions. So I think safety is a big key right now when it comes to cannabis. And I have a good friend of mine, and he's been smoking all of his life, and it wasn't until the legalization that he knew the difference between an indica and a sativa and how they affect you and the different strains that are available, and just again with that buying experience to figure out how different products react with your body. And a lot of people are only smoking whatever product that black market person has, but to have whether it's a micro dosing in an edible or just to have a vape cartridge so you're not going to work smelling like you just smoked, all this stuff really just changes people's lifestyle.
Much.
All right. And thank you there. We're gonna move on. If you do have any other questions or comments, I would just suggest reaching out to us from there, but I do want to make sure that we get to some other people tonight as well. So, Alanis Prasad, Alanis, you've been unmuted. Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Am I good? Okay, awesome. First off, thank you so much for being here today to talk about this. And my question is twofold. I'll go ahead and ask my first one. I was surprised to learn that this is the first recreational dispensary in a major East Coast city like Pure Oasis. And I just wanted to ask your opinion, Mr. Evans. Why do you think the United States and the East Coast especially has been so hesitant to open up a recreational dispensary, given the facts you listed about it actually being safer for people, yeah, of not being laced with anything? Or why do you think this is such a reluctant topic and a controversial topic to kind of bring to the forefront of the conversation?
That's a good question. That's more of a political science 201 question. But it really has to drill down to, the United States has, we have states' rights, and within states' rights, you have counties and cities and towns, and everyone, whether you are, a 10-person town to a million-person state, the 10-person town has to sign off on it. And, we just haven't had the type of progressive leaders who are willing to look at it in a different lens, or to put their neck out there to risk being not reelected because they support, drugs. The war on drugs campaign was super successful, and to try and counter that narrative with all of a sudden, drugs aren't so bad. That's a heavy lift, and people didn't really, lawmakers didn't really get on board in terms of, okay, we want to be progressive. The impetus really was more so, hey, there's some revenue here and we're struggling for revenue. So, whether or not it's good, we really can't prove that it's bad, but we can prove that we need this revenue from it. So let's, do a cash grab. So I think it was more about the revenue part of it that is legal, and less about the stigmatization or any concerns about, um, the fact that it is a drug.
Right. And the second part of my question was, you spoke briefly about, I believe, Ayanna Presley and her work in helping this kind of like initiative and seeing if like checking in on the store and everything like that. Can you speak to more about what her impact was and how you worked with her?
Yeah, so when I supported her campaign when she ran for city councilor years ago. And so when they wrote the ballot measure that ultimately became a law, they wrote it from the frame of those who, what I told her, which, we both acknowledge is, the lens was those who were closest to the pain should be closest to the profits. And so she acknowledged, that's what her motivation was. But it was from that framework when she was, I believe that still at the she was still a city councilor back in 2000. I think it was 4 years ago, 2016 or 2015 at that point. And again, it was to create pathways for people like Kevin and I, who grow up, with this lived experience in inner city communities, that that the voters would vote to legalize. And once that happened, people like Kevin and I would have the opportunity to get involved. And so we stayed in contact with her, and she gave us contacts of a particular, I think it was the first Black owned or female woman, person of color, who owned a dispensary out in Denver. So we went out there and visited with Wanda James, and toured her dispensary. And that was facilitated through Councilor Presley's office, because the city council had also gone out there to meet with Wanda. But it was a firsthand look on how a dispensary is run and operated. Um, but I think that, as you have Council Presley in Congress as a representative, part of the progressive movement, they're still looking at pathways, whether it be, legalization or other things that can help people from different communities. and really engaging in the whole political fight, if you will.
Got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So thank you. So we'll move on to the next person here. Alia Forrest. Alia, I just unmuted you.
Hi, you might hear some screaming children, but I'm just here. Oh boy. I am just here on behalf of the Office of Economic Development to listen more about Kobe's new shop.
Thank you, Alia.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for your support.
All right, I have a call-in user at 978-944. I've just unmuted you. You might have to press *6 as well to unmute yourself too. But did you have any questions, comments, or concerns? You might also have to just press *6. I'll give you just a few extra seconds here as well. All right, well, we'll come back to you at the end as well. If not, please feel free to email myself or the applicants here so we can answer any questions, comments, and concerns you may have. Chalia White, I'm going to unmute you here. Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns?
Hi, similar to Aaliyah, I am here from Economic Development. I'm just here to listen. I don't have any questions or comments.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Shayla.
Danielle Delaney. Danielle, did you have any questions, comments, or concerns?
Actually, appreciate that. I just had a quick question. I know there are already 3 dispensaries approved by the BCB within that half-mile buffer of where Devonshire is, and I just like to hear about after Oasis thinks they'd fit in that mix.
John, I didn't hear all that question.
Sure, I think that he was asking, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe I heard correctly of there's 3 other locations within a half a mile of the buffer zone there with this location. So if like what would make this establishment want to fit into that?
Yeah, I think, Alexis, are you muted?
Hold on, Dan, as you know, when Patriot Care received their approval from the Boston Cannabis Board, one of the items that they put on the record was they wanted to approve Patriot Care, but, quote, we do not want to shut the downtown area in terms of equity. So not only do we feel that this goes towards equity, as Kobe said, unfortunately, many proposals and shops don't end up opening. And so they searched for a long time to find a site that was not near any vulnerable populations, not near any schools, did their best due diligence, and they're also bringing the experience of having an open shop so that the downtown can feel comfortable with its operator. It's not aspirational. It's not a high-risk endeavor. It is operating in a densely packed neighborhood now without issue. So I think that that goes to part of what you might be asking.
So we'll go on to the next person then. Let's see, Isaac Hampton. Isaac, did you have any questions, comments, or concerns? Isaac, you've been unmuted. Did you have any questions, comments, or concerns? Okay. Jennifer Carrigan. Jennifer, you've been unmuted. Did you have any questions, comments, or concerns?
No, I'm just here to observe. Thank you.
Jillian O'Farrell. Jillian, did you have any questions, comments, or concerns?
That's a brief question. Can you hear me?
Jillian, you've been unmuted. Did you have any questions, comments, or concerns? I couldn't hear you there. My apologies.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I just had a quick question because the Devonshire location is really close to City Hall and Quincy Market, and that area in general gets a lot of tourist traffic. How do you think that's going to impact the traffic, your business experiences, and also just kind of the way the public interacts with it?
John, I didn't hear it very well. Can you give me a...
Sure. And Julie, please say it again if you would like as well, but I believe that you were asking about traffic impacts in the area, if that was the general,
No, is this better?
yes, that is extremely better. Thank you.
Is this sound okay? No, I was saying how the location is really close to City Hall and Quincy Market, which is a very like high tourist heavy area. How do you think that that is going to impact the traffic your business experiences?
Yeah, I don't. What we've learned over time is that we don't generally create new traffic for the most part. What we do is service, existing traffic. Um, Downtown and a couple of other locations in Boston, the Seaport, Faneuil Hall, Back Bay, um, South End have a high traffic count. And so when someone like Pure Oasis or another dispensary goes into a neighborhood, um, the realization is that we're not enhancing, we're not creating more traffic, we're just leveraging the existing foot traffic that's there. Ultimately, what you'll see throughout the city, based on the trajectory of licenses, is that people from the South End will have a dispensary in their neighborhood and they won't have to go to Back Bay. Brighton won't have to go to Alston. So you won't necessarily see people from South End go to downtown. The consensus is that if you have a blanket approach to the way that you roll these out across the city, you're not going to have a situation where everyone is going to downtown, everyone is going to South End, because those are the only two locations. So ultimately, with the plan that the city has, there won't be this spike in traffic. It will be the normal traffic, but now you just have a dispensary in that neighborhood.
I guess my question was also, were you looking to tap into any of that tourist market that's present in the downtown crossing area?
Um, Again, what we look at is just overall traffic counts. Downtown crossing has high population density. If you're a tourist and you fly into Boston, you will have the opportunity to go to a couple of dispensaries in East Boston. You can go to one in Charlestown. You can go to one. Maybe if you come off the highway, there'll be one in the Seaport. You know, the way the city should ultimately be laid out, wherever your final destination is, more than likely there should be a dispensary within, a mile of that ultimate location.
Jillian, do you have any other follow-up questions before I move on to the next person?
No, thank you so much.
I actually see here, and I apologize, I didn't see you. I didn't see when you popped in, but Kevin Hart, you're here as well. So Kevin, I'll actually make you a panelist now. My apologies for not seeing you previous to that.
No, no.
All right, and then we'll go through. We could kind of hear you, Kevin. Did you want to say repeat yourself? My apologies.
Oh, I said thank you for adding me, and my apologies for joining late. But I've heard the majority of the discussion.
No problem. Thank you, Kevin. And then the last participant here tonight we have is Rosemary Boardman. Rosemary, how are you tonight?
I'm well, thanks. Hi, I just want to clarify, this is Rose Boardman. I am the Chief Financial Officer for the Downtown Boston Business Improvement District. Kobe and Kevin, thank you for the very thoughtful presentation and approach to 85 Devonshire Street. We look forward to our continued conversations with you. We're here tonight actually listening for a butter, support, opposition, opinions, residents. So appreciate the city hosting this and everyone taking the time. One question for you, Kobe and Kevin, and I don't believe we talked about this during our first conversation. But as you may be aware, we run the ambassador program for the downtown Boston, downtown crossing area. We have 50 uniformed employees who clean and give directions and haul trash and do just yeoman's work all through the pandemic. If we were to pick up barcoded debris, cannabis debris, as we do alcohol debris considerably, would you be willing to scan it and do some education with your customer?
Yeah, absolutely. We we just had a community cleanup in Grove Hall, mainly um, as being a good community partner, but the realization is that people being people, everyone isn't responsible with their trash. And so I don't think that in Grove Hall, we've found it to be a pervasive issue, but we have found it to be more of an issue than we would like it to be. And so one of the things that work well for us is having um, multiple trash cans available for our patrons as soon as they leave the door. And that promotes capturing that trash immediately. And that's probably 90% of the trash, that is ultimately disposed of. So something like that we found to be super helpful. And other than on top of that, every day staff is mandated to do a sweep around our property. So either a manager or a security guard walks the neighborhood to pick up any loose debris, whether it's pure Oasis or not. And so we have kind of redundancies, but yet and still, people being people, there's still trash in the neighborhood. And we would absolutely sign up to police our own customers and to remind them that, they need to be responsible and we're going to hold them responsible. And if we find that, we can trace packaging back to particular customers, then they'll be reprimanded and potentially barred from the store if they're a repeat offender. So the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. It's as appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I just to add to that end, we would partner with your ambassador group on occasion to help clean up the area, and we would do that, outside of any debris that would maybe collect due to pure Oasis traffic. We would do that just to be good community partners.
Oh, that'd be great. We paint the light poles every April. The mayor sponsors the spring cleanup, and we would love participation from anyone on this call. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
We just recently completed our second cleanup of Grove Hall, and it was a wonderful experience. It engages our staff. It really connects us to the community. So that is something that we actually really enjoy. So we would love to help you out.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all. I just have one thing that's been posted in the question and answer piece over here, so give me 1 second. My apologies. I will note here, and so there was Jennifer put in the chat here. Just want to read out the chat that there's it's not a question, but wanted to note that I'm here representing like herself, the landlord. They weren't able to say this at the time when they were muted or unmuted, but they've been very impressed with Pure Oasis and wanted to voice that as well. I like to always just make sure I read out comments into the record too here.
Thank you.
Just want to voice here too. All right, so what I will do here is again, so we have everyone here spoken tonight, has had a chance to ask questions, comments, or concerns. This, again, as we mentioned before, is not the end of your chance to be able to reach out for questions, comments, concerns. My information is John, John, period, Romano, like Ray Romano, but just not as funny, Romano @ boston.gov. Feel free to reach out to me at any time you have questions, comments, and concerns about this project. The team here, do you all want to leave any contact information as well for people to get in contact with you?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to remember. Also, my email is kevin@mypureoasis.com, and Kobe's is kobe@mypureoasis.com, and that's KEVIN and KOBIE.
All right, perfect. Thank you all so much. And then if you do have any other questions, feel free to reach out. But at this time, I'll be ending this at this cannabis meeting. Thank you all, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.